Dolphins, come to me.
I hate you all.
You're listening to the Theology of Games podcast, your source for gaming news, reviews, and interviews with the top voices in the industry. Find us online at theologyofgames.com. And now, here are your hosts, Scott Firestone and Jeremiah Isley.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Theology of Games podcast. It's episode 25. It's the Quarter-Tennial, the 1/4-tennial. I don't know. I'm out of those words.
Like a score in 5.
A score in 5 shows.
Well, look at him going all Abe Lincoln on us.
Yeah, good work. Hey, I'm Jeremiah Isley, and those people are AJ Skifstad and Scott Firestone. How's it going, guys?
Super.
Good to be here again.
Good to be here. Good to be alive. It's been a while. We were on a good streak there for a while earlier this year, and then I don't know what happened. August hit, and it's been a few months, but we're back. And we before we go any further, we need to acknowledge some folks. There have been some things going on to kind of help fund what's going on at Theology of Games. So we did an Indiegogo campaign earlier this year to kind of help with the Origins trip and the booth and everything there. And then since then, we've also started up a Patreon page. That's the word I'm looking for, Patreon. So as a part of that, folks who have backed at certain levels, you get to be thanked on air, and most of them have chosen to be thanked on this show. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to say thanks to Chris Mayfield. You're a true champ. Thanks for being a backer and a patron. AJ Novacek, which I would have never guessed that's how you say Novacek by looking at the spelling. So thank you for spelling that out for me, because I would have been fumbling around like some kind of idiot. Peter Schott, thanks so much for being on board. We really appreciate it. As well as Lance Morgan. Lance, I believe Lance, if I'm not mistaken, we met at Origins, and you were just super nice, and I appreciate that. And if it wasn't you, Lance, stop taking someone else's glory.
Sure.
Gamer Leaf, who is a big time backer on our Patreon page. I can't say Patreon today. What's wrong with me?
It's 10 o'clock. I think you were just trick or treating for like
yeah, and I eat way too much of my kids' candy, but we'll talk about that later on. But Gamer Leaf, thanks for being a part of it, and of course, Alan Girding. I say of course as if that's a given, but Alan's a good friend and a friend of the show and the site and everything. And I forgot to write down Ben Canellos is also a patron, and Ben's a good guy. He's been on a few things that I've produced over the years, and he's designed some really cool games, and just an awesome dude that lives here in the Northeast Ohio area. So those are the ones that get thanked on the air. If you want to be thanked on the air, or if you just want to get some cool promos that we can send you in the mail, head over to theologyofgames.com/Patreon and check that out. We've got a contest going on there as well, where you can win a copy of Tower of Madness from Smirk and Dagger, which is pretty cool.
It's a great game.
It really is. So that's my beginning spiel for the episode. Who's next?
Firestone, he's going to talk some Kickstarter releases.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was having a hard time coming up with some good Kickstarters, and then suddenly October hit, and now there are a plethora of them. So things like Tidal Blades. This is from Druid City Games. It's a worker placement game. I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow morning on the one. Well, when I don't know when you're listening to it, but the Kickstarter for tomorrow, we'll have that one. There's a new one called Wild Ascent that is like a battleground with super detailed miniatures. It looks really, really cool, even though I'm totally like, all right, enough with the miniatures. I'm sick of paying $100 a game. And, but it still looks really cool. There's one called Cloudspire that looks awesome from Chip Theory Games. Really, again, it's miniatures, but it has these cool discs that you use and this bright, vivid landscape. It looks really, really awesome. And a friend of mine backed their other game that I totally am spacing on now. What did they do before?
You mentioned it to me the other day too.
I know, I can't remember. Anyway, they did a game. Too Many Bones. That's what it was. And a friend of mine said that he really loved Too Many Bones, and so he's backing this automatically just because Chip Theory Games is behind it. And then finally, there's one that I'll be talking about later. That's Spirit Island expansion that's coming out. I'm super excited for it, even though this is insane. It's not coming out until May of 2020.
Wow.
I don't know what's up with that, but anyway.
Under promise, over deliver. That's what's going on there. That's my guess. You know, they're going to say, hey, we're pushing this out. It's going to be a while to get it. And then whammo, next Christmas, you can have it under your tree. And then everybody's happy. I know. It's crazy.
It doesn't even have miniatures.
If you count the little explorers, perhaps.
Well, they have to carve the meeples by hand, and
apparently,
yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wasn't there just a Kickstarter that ended too for a reprint? Was it by TMG or somebody just did a reprint?
Belfort.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't know if it's still going or not, but yes, Belfort with a new expansion.
And that's what we're actually talking about next is some reprints, because we've been seeing them a lot in the gaming industry. And it's crazy because I have mixed feelings about some of the reprints that have come out lately. There's been, some of the ones that are the latest, I think of things in the last 2 to 3 years, like Pillars of the Earth, Citadels that came out. And now I know you're going to talk about them later too, Scott, but Brass and you name it. There's a ton that have come out. You named a couple other before we started the episode. What were some of them?
Endeavor was one. I can't remember now. I just remember that Tom Vassell said, famously apparently, that any game that is good enough will get reprinted at some point. And I was like, I'm not sure that's true. And then it seems to be totally true. Like even games that are pretty mediocre, in my opinion,
I agree. Yeah,
that are out of print, they just get reprinted.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just supply and demand or it's weird because I kind of feel about it that sometimes if a game gets a facelift, I get a little jealous and I'm like, I want that in my collection. Like for instance, Kingsburg, when that got reprinted, I love the new look of that game. But then there's also something about having the game that was original too. And it's like, you get a little feeling of that gamer superiority that you're like, oh yeah, I had this game before anybody knew about it.
Like hipster gamers.
Exactly.
Well, I think part of that is there's, man, I just totally lost my thought.
I agree with you, Jeremiah.
He wanted in on this conversation.
No, I had a really good thought and I was like, I better get in. And then it disappeared as my mouth opened. No. I was going to say that, you were saying like, even mediocre games get reprinted. Well, yeah, but if you think about it, some of those games that are from smaller publishers, like their print run could have been like 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
And it got it got out there and people weren't sure if it was great or if it was good or worth getting. And then a few of their friends have it, or they've heard, through the Geek or through reviews or whatever, like, hey, there's a decent game here. And then so boom, they go and they order a reprint, whether they spiff it up or whether they don't, they just didn't print many because they're small and they couldn't afford to rip off 40,000 copies of it. So I think that's part of what we're seeing too, is I think there are more gamers in general, just every day, more people are calling themselves gamers and getting into the hobby. So now there's these games that they're like, I've been reading about this. I want to go get it. And it's not out there. So the demand is kind of getting ratcheted up. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of that playing into this as well, where like, oh, why would that get a reprint? But there might have only been 500 copies printed the first time.
It's unbelievable. They just keep popping into my head as we're sitting here. Before we started this episode, I couldn't think of any, and now they're all popping into my head. But like a couple years back, this was like 4 years back now, I think. Tigris and Euphrates got its reprint and its facelift. There was another one.
Ra was reprinted.
Ra, that's it. Yeah.
Amun-Re, yeah.
And then I've talked about High Society a billion times. I mean, it's just, there's so many right now. And so I guess, Jeremiah, to your point, which was smaller companies that are reprinting games, I guess there's a difference maybe between print runs versus games that have had their heyday and are kind of making their way back into the scene.
Yeah.
I would say maybe with that have not been printed within, maybe 5 to 6 years.
And I think that, that kind of goes with what I was saying about there's more gamers now. Like, 10 years ago, there were only, just throwing out a random number, there were only 1,000 people that were like, I have to get Tigris and Euphrates. Now there's 2,000 people,
right.
And they're like, oh, this is a classic game. This is something I need to have in my collection. And so Fantasy Flight said, great, let's do it. They spiffed it up. They did a new artwork and new components. And now these new gamers can go, great, I've got this classic game in my collection. And the original game now has collectability. Like that original copy is something to be sought after because, oh, well, I have the new one and I get to play it and that's great. But for the collector out there, they can go and seek out that first run, that first edition.
Sure. So where, I guess my question is, where do you guys, what side of the fence are you on? Do you care if a game gets reprinted? Does it make you kind of upset? Like, especially if it gets a facelift, like something that's just, and again, I know you're going to talk about it, Scott, but like Brass, that just is like, it's deliciously awesome. Yeah. It's, but, and then you look at the first one and you see a little bit how cartoony it was.
I would care more if I had bought the first one, but that's what I did with Endeavor. So I had Endeavor, I sat on it. We played it a few times. It just sat on my shelf. And it kind of was a feeling of not superiority, but I was like, I'm so glad I kept that. I'm so glad I have that. And then they reprint it. And my old version of Endeavor looks like junk compared to the new one. The new one is so beautiful. And I'm not sure I'll ever be able to get rid of that old copy now.
Right. I look at a game like Puerto Rico and I think if they ever did a reprint of that, and I know they did an anniversary edition, which looks awesome, but if they ever like reprinted a game like Puerto Rico, which is a fantastic game, I think I'd have to have it because Puerto Rico's, it's butt ugly. It's a nasty looking game. The colors are dull. You've got little chips that are your workers, and it's I'd probably want to spiff up that game if I could.
I think I side on the side of the publishers with this one. If I'm looking at it from their lens and somebody goes, hey, this game we printed 10 years ago that we published is getting hot again and people want it, and let's soup it up, let's make a newer edition of it, and they can sell that, great. I think that's good. And I think as a gamer, there's a second, like if we're talking like second edition, okay, there's new rules, there's new things that are happening with it. Then it's like, oh, do I want to do it? Is it worth that? For instance, I think we talked last episode about Dungeon Raiders. Here's a game that was ugly. It was fun. There was a really good game there.
I didn't think it was ugly, but
well, it wasn't great. But the components were clunky and the setup was weird. And they took that game and they made very small tweaks to it. And now it's amazing. It's this great game. So I think I'm in favor of that because why not? If there's a demand for it and people are going to buy it and it's a good game that's going to get a little better, then I'm all for it. Like keep increasing, keep raising the bar on the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just interesting conversation because they're all over right now. And I think I think the market is almost flooded with probably, I'm not going to throw an arbitrary number out there, so I just won't do it. But I think they're getting closer together, new games versus reprints. I mean, it's a high ratio, I think.
Yeah, the ratio is definitely up for sure.
But anyways, that's reprints. Let's talk about Essen.
Oh, Essen.
Essen is happening in Germany. It's like a dream bucket list kind of thing. Although I don't know how I would convince my wife, like, hey, we're finally going to go to Germany. What if we go to a board game convention where we won't understand anyone? Doesn't that sound fun? So I'm never going to go to Essen.
Guten Tag.
Outside of hitting the $1.6 billion Powerball or Mega Millions or whatever it was that I obviously did not hit.
Did you buy a ticket?
I did one day. I didn't on the day that it got picked. But yeah, I'm probably not going to go. But what the worst thing about this is, even just today, as of the day that we're recording, I got an email from a publisher. I won't say the publisher, but I got an email saying, "Hey, if we'd love to see you at Essen, we're here. Swing by the booth, call us up. You know, we'd love to do an interview with you guys and you know, have you swing by the booth and show you what's going on." And I'm like, "You so and so, I'm not there." Like, way to rub it in. No, it was very nice of them to email us, but at the same time, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm totally not there." And it's one of those things where these are a few days that I don't scroll Instagram that much because I'm like, oh man, Essen's going on and I'm not there. But it's great. I would love the opportunity to do it at some point, but I'm with you. I don't know that it's ever going to happen.
I'd absolutely love to go, but I find it hard to follow. I've been trying to do some reading up on it to see what's being released and know what's coming out. And it's interesting because some of the publishers over there are different from over here. Like, let's say, this is not a good example, but Fantasy Flight releases a game here. It's a different publisher in Germany, and so their booth is over there in Germany. And even if you do some reading about it on like BGG or some other forums, you'll see a lot of times the publisher, the German publisher, and so it's like, crap, who's really making that game? I'd love to know more about it. And then, all of a sudden you find out, wait, I think I saw that before, but who's releasing it? Somebody here in the US? And, it's kind of hard. I find it hard to follow, but I do a little reading here and there and then just get thoroughly confused.
The thing about Essen that scares me, like literally scares me, is, okay, I didn't make it to Gen Con this year, but I was there last year. Biggest year to date, there's 65,000 some people, whatever it was. And people at Gen Con are telling me Essen is like 4 times bigger than this.
What?
Which it's different. It's like multiple buildings worth of exhibitors and gaming. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine. Like, there's no way to comprehend that.
That would stress me out.
It's so big. And great, gaming's huge over there. Obviously, the Spiel des Jahres comes from Germany. So it's a thing. It's really a thing. And the US is catching up, but I can't fathom that. Like, that is just incomprehensible to me.
Well, as far as new games, one alternative that I think is viable is going to BGG Con, which is the middle of next month.
Yeah.
And it is big enough that a lot of publishers now will go, hey, we dropped this thing at Essen and we're drop shipping a bunch of them to BGG Con. Yeah. So people that go there are actually playing like some hot off the press games.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to Germany. I mean, I want to go to Germany, but I don't want to go for that. I want to go to Germany.
Yeah.
But if you can swing a trip to Texas for a few days, you can play all these things. So I think that's a viable option.
Yeah. And out here, sort of on the East Coast in Philly, I don't know if it's the same week again, but last year, PAX Unplugged was in Philadelphia, and it was the same week as BGG Con, and it got big fast. It was its first year last year, and there were a lot of the major publishers there. In the same kind of thing. You could get that hot off the press Essen release and check it out at that con too. So kind of if you're in the South or West, and if you're in the Northeast or Midwest, there's something way closer than across the sea. So that's happening. That has happened by the time you've heard this, possibly, because it's a podcast. Time is irrelevant. It's like that time I had a really good
BM
time. Well, that went the wrong way. I was going to say I have a good time travel joke, but you guys didn't like it.
No, AJ's was better.
Hey, this is a good time to tell you about the other things we do at Theology of Games. You can find everything you need to know about Theology of Games by going to theologyofgames.com. But we wanted to just highlight a couple things that are going on right now, including our other two podcasts. We have Board Games Daily, which is darn near daily. We do 5 days a week, more of a quick hitting podcast, usually under 20 minutes, where we will comment on news and things that are happening as it happens. We also do Topic Tuesday, where you can listen to the topic that we have for the week, become a part of that conversation. We do Game Night Cage Fight every week, where we pit two games of similar mechanic or theme up against each other. And what else do? We do What Will You Play Friday. We do a lot of different cool things throughout the week to
Breaking
make it interesting.
Stuff that we can be really nimble with.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we get an email or a press release or something comes across Twitter or the Geek. We can jump on that day, react to it, get your reactions. It's very, very cool. The other thing we wanted to let you know, well, there's a couple more things. That's How I Roll is a weekly podcast that I do solo. I started doing that one in my car as I was driving my boys back and forth to school. But now we live 3 minutes from the school, and that doesn't really make sense. But I'm still doing the show. And coming up soon, actually on Halloween, I will be releasing episode 100 of that. And yeah, so stay tuned, because I've got some cool prizes that I'm going to be giving away, including what do we got over here? AJ's got it. We got Food Truck Champion and Merchants of Araby. But the big prize that I have is a deluxeified edition of Chimera Station from Tasty Minstrel Games.
Whoa.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Check that out on Halloween, and you'll be able to get in on those contests and win a very sweet prize. And lastly, no, this isn't lastly. I've got another thing after this, but I'm getting there.
Wow.
We've got some big time reviews coming up on the site. We do our, what we call a double take review, where Scott and I write back and forth about games as we review them. And we're talking Koi from Smirk and Dagger, Zombs, which is a new zombie card game. We've got the Emotep expansion, a new Dynasty, the new Andor, the Dark Heroes expansion, and The Last Hope, which is the newest base game for that, as well as Tower of Madness and Spy Club, which is from Foxtrot Games. So those are coming. And then lastly, this is the big thing. There should be like fanfare here. And yeah, you guys are
your
great.
trumpet was really high.
We have a new way for you, the listener, to be involved with everything we do, all the shows, whether it's Board Games Daily, That's How I Roll, or this podcast, the Theology of Games podcast. You can call in, and we have, I'm calling it the TOG party line. That's probably not an appropriate name.
No, I like it.
But all you have to do is call 216-352-3864. That's 216-352-3864. And what will happen is I'm not going to answer the phone, but you'll hear my voice say, hey, we're playing games right now or recording a podcast. Leave a message. If you leave a message there, chime in on whatever it is we're talking about, whatever episode you just listened to of whatever show, just leave a message, give your thoughts, be a part of the conversation, and we'll play it on the next episode of whatever podcast you are responding to. So again, it's 216-352-3864, or you can go to theologyofgames.com/contact. Just click the little contact tab and it'll have that information there as well. So pretty excited about that. Hope to have you guys join us on the show as we move on forward.
Speaking of moving on forward.
Yeah, let's move on forward. Somebody else talk for a while so I can drink a little more of my tea.
All right, we're going to talk about games we've had on the table. These are things that we've played at our game nights, other game nights. Maybe we own them, maybe other people brought them. We're going to talk about what's on the table. So I guess I'll just go first since I'm already talking. For me, we finally got to my son's Unlock game. We bought him this game for his birthday in February, and it was the Squeak and Sausage one that's supposed to be like an easier one, like this kind of kid-friendly theme of this mad scientist or something. I'm not sure. Are
you sure that Squeak and Sausage is kid-friendly?
That's what is wrong with you? So we sat down. Everyone was kind of unsure. I'm the only one that had done an escape room before. I only did it once, and no one else had done anything like that before. But my youngest loves puzzles, so I was super excited to share this with him. He was all ready to go. We sit down, and we just we did not know what we were doing. We couldn't figure things out. We spent the entire hour, and I think we got through just maybe a tenth of the deck, and we didn't know what we were doing. We were figuring some things out, but it just didn't feel right. And then sometimes we just kind of like arbitrarily guessed numbers and I felt like, I think there's supposed to be a reason we're picking that number, not just like, oh, I think if we add these two things together, it might work, kind of. And so we'd flip the card over and it would be referring to something that obviously was coming later. So we'd be like, oh, just forget that. Put it down. And so we are like, we got through the hour and then it was like bedtime. I thought we'd be done. And so we just kind of set it aside and we haven't gone back to it yet. And I think I may have like crushed my son's interest in this game because we just sat there like, I don't know what we're doing. So we had a bad experience with Unlock, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to try and finish it and we'll see. What else? Oh, we played Dice Forge. So a friend of mine bought this and I was not really interested in it, but it was a quick filler. And so we played it and it turned out to be a pretty cool game. And it's one where it's like a dice build or a deck builder, but it's with dice. You start with these crappy dice that have very generic sides on them and you accumulate money over the game and resources and you spend them to put new faces on the dice. So you literally just pop off one of the faces and you buy one and put a new one on there. And so then when you roll it, there's a chance that you're going to get a better thing, which lets you buy better dice faces and eventually buy cards to win the game. It was surprisingly pretty cool. I liked it a lot. And
AJ likes that game a lot
I
too.
love that game because you get to roll your dice on everybody's turn.
Right.
Because you don't have to wait. And so you're just, if you're going to have a dice chucker, you want to chuck your dice all the time and you get to. And that's why the game works for me. Yeah. Cause it's luck based, but at least let me roll them over and over again.
Right. Mitigate that luck a little bit. So I played it and I thought, okay, that's something I think my kids would enjoy. So now it's on the radar. So we'll see.
Ooh, it's like $22 on Amazon. Get it while it's hot.
Is it really only that much?
Yeah, when I got it, the MSRP was $40, but it's you can pick it up pretty cheap now here and there.
And I think they're coming out with an expansion really soon, so maybe now is the time to get it. Anyway, and so finally, the last thing is Endeavor: Age of Sail. This I talked a little bit about this earlier, but Burnt Island Games got the rights to this, and they did a gorgeous new edition of this. The box is huge. It has so much stuff in there. The Kickstarter edition has these wonderful pieces that you don't even play with the base game. Like I was opening all these pieces and putting them in, and it's like, oh, you won't use any of those in the base game. They are for this expansion that they came out with. And so the game is really cool. it's about exploration, colonization, and it's controversial because there is a deck in there that you can use for Europe. There are 2 decks. You can either just go the straight European deck to get things to add to your boards, or you can go with a slavery deck. And they have this whole paragraph in there where they talk about how they considered taking this out of the game, but they wanted to leave it in because of it's historical. And they thought if we take it out, then that's being dishonest to the history of it. And they're not encouraging you to use it. And indeed, what it does is it's slightly better than the other deck, but there is a cost potentially because if other people run through that generic European deck, then they obliterate slavery, and all those cards count as negative for you. So when I very first played this game years ago, there was one of our friends was playing it with us, and her whole goal was to obliterate slavery. She didn't care if she won that game. She didn't care about anything else that was happening. She's like, I'm going to blast through those cards and obliterate slavery. And so that was her goal. But anyway, this new version has a couple of new tweaks that are really great. But one of the cool things is something I'll talk about later. So I'm going to let that go for now and then jump back in. But Endeavor Age of Sail is gorgeous. We played it 2 times the other night, one after the other, and that hardly ever happens. But we really liked it enough that we thought, yes, let's try and dig into this a little bit. Fun game. So I talked a lot. You guys should talk.
It's a cliffhanger.
I can talk about some games I've been playing. We've talked about this one recently too because we like the expansion so much for it. But I keep getting Orleans to the table, and it was one of those Euro games that for the longest time I knew I wanted it, and I just kept looking all around to see if I could get the Deluxeified edition. It was just one of those Kickstarters that I was kicking myself for not getting. And so I never wanted to buy the game because I was holding out to find a copy on eBay that had all the cutout resources and stuff. But I never found it. So I bought it and I play the game all the time. It's one of our favorite Euros to get to the table now. It keeps hitting the table. I don't actually have the Trade and Intrigue expansion, but I played it with you, Jeremiah, and I might just steal your copy when you're not looking.
No, don't take mine, but get it because it's really good.
It is awesome. Yeah, it takes the game to the next level. There's a lot more choices, a lot more events, but I think the choices of the trade board itself just make the game 10 times better. So usually when you go to the trade board, you just are getting money in the base game, which in that game it's called the Town Hall, I think. In the original, but the expansion is super cool. I'm going to talk about 2 more. I've been playing Charterstone, which is a legacy game by Stonemaier Games. It's a very fun game. It's like this village exploration / worker placement, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. And the last game, I just got this to the table last night, tried it out for the first time, is Spirit Island, which again we're going to talk about a little bit later. And I know, Scott, you're pretty hot on that game. You like that one.
I do, and I'm concerned about. I felt a lot of pressure when I talked that up so much, and you're like, I'm getting it. So now I want to know how you feel. Yeah.
So actually, we had a lot of fun playing it, but there was a lot of stress playing it too. One, because it was super hard. Basically in Spirit Island, you are spirits defending an island from invaders that are coming on and building cities and ravaging the land by building farms, and not literally building farms, but that's what they do when they ravage the land. And you're the spirits trying to kick them off, and you're okay with the natives that are already on the island. They're going to help you too, but you're basically playing power cards and trying to use these powers to generate fear amongst the natives and destroy the natives before they add too much blight to your island. With most cooperatives, there's several ways to lose and usually only one way to win. In this game, the win condition changes, which is very cool. And I know it's going to be even different with some of the expansions that are coming out. And I'm talking way too much about this, but the versatility of this game alone is worth the MSRP. The gameplay is good enough that the versatility is just, it takes it to the next level. We couldn't even tap into what this game had to offer last night. And my only problem was this game is super heavy. we had a lot of trouble figuring out the rules, and I had read through the rule book twice, and it's a big rule book. And I don't know if the rule book is written poorly or if the rule book is just extensive. I couldn't even tell because I was so overwhelmed. And so I was a little disheartened by how hard it was to manage the rules at first. But once we played through a couple rounds, it started to feel a little natural.
Yeah, the first time I played it, someone who had played a number of times taught it, and I remember thinking, "Oh, if he hadn't been here to do that, I would be so screwed."
Yeah,
because it's one of those games where somebody has to walk you through and explain what's happening because it's just obtuse.
Yeah, it is. It's unlike. I'll say this: it's unlike anything I've ever played, cooperative or competitive. It is very, very. I don't know. It had a different feel to it, and I really liked it. I was so excited to see new cards coming out and what my powers were going to do next. There's so much to manage. We can't even talk about everything. I mean, that's all I can tell you right now because there's so many cool aspects of this game. But it's going to be really solid, and I'm glad it's in my collection. So, thank you. Well, that's what's on my table. What about you, Jeremiah?
So, I'll be honest, recently I've played one game, but since the last episode, I've played a lot. So I just last Sunday played a game of Coup with some middle schoolers that came over. We're kind of hosting a small Bible study for the middle school from our church. And so they actually, a lot of them knew Coup because I think they had gone on some like missions trip or something. And somebody brought it, so they were playing it like that whole trip, which sounds like a lot of fun. So we played that, and I think it was actually the first time I played it with my son because I've been putting off teaching him games that teach him how to lie to me. So anyway, Coup's classic. It's great. It's super fun. It's another one of those games that got reprinted and reskinned, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But
it did?
Still good. Very, very good. Yeah.
Are you talking about Rebellion?
No. The original game is much older and very much more medieval, I guess, looking. With the artwork and everything. And then they reskinned it and put it in the Resistance universe. So
indie games picked it up. And,
yeah.
Which they're not even indie games now. I can't remember who they merged with, but
they merged with Stronghold and someone else, right? Yeah. So there's that. Let's see, what else did I play? I played Spy Club from Foxtrot Games, which is a cool little co-op that's sort of legacy, sort of not. There's these two like huge campaign decks. There's like over 100 cards each in each of those decks, and as you're playing the game, you'll have two cards, like one or two of those cards out, and then you'll flip it over, and then certain things that happen that card will tell you to go get a different card out of the deck. So each time you do it, it's not like, oh well, I know what's happening next because I've played through this. You pull out different cards, like it'll ask you, like, oh, you solved the motive. What letter does that card start with? And then there's a chart and it has you pull a different card depending on where it lands in the alphabet. So it's a really cool kind of twist on sort of the legacy thing. And I want to get some more plays under my belt because we really scratched the surface. I mean, there's like over 200 of these cards that you can reveal that all affect how the game plays while you're playing it, and it's pretty cool. Another thing that I got to play that I was really excited about is the media person from Keymaster Games, Jennifer. I think her last name's Graham. Sorry, Jennifer, I'm blowing that. But she got with me and we connected via Tabletop Simulator and showed me the Campy Creatures expansion and second edition. So they've created a second edition. It doesn't mechanically change how the game plays, but it does offer you a way to win location cards. But the cool thing that they're doing is the Kickstarter, if you get just the expansion because you already have the base game. They're giving you all the cards and everything you need to retrofit your base game so that it'll work with the expansion and it'll kind of play as the second edition.
Cool.
But it's cool. It's more campy creatures. You know, there's 4 more monsters. There's 2 different mortal types that they've added to it. And like I said, there's location cards now. So if you win the round, you win the location, and it can alter how you score. It can alter how your opponents score. It does a lot of really cool things. So that was really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing that live and in person. They sent over some images, and they've been out on Instagram and stuff, and the artwork is just as amazing as it was for the base game, and the gameplay again is great and fun, and they've added, you know, the new locations and some cool stuff to it. So that's just a small sample of what I've been playing. I also played Blood Rage and Tower of Madness and Capital City from Calliope Games, which is really, really fun. And
well, we played Capital City, didn't we? I like that. Yeah,
we played that. We played it a couple times.
That was fun.
night.
Yeah, that was a cool game.
So let's move on. Let's go to Fire and Ice. Okay, since I'm up on the sheet first, why don't I just start? How's that sound?
Sure.
Great.
All right, so
Explain what Fire and Ice is.
oh, we should do that. Fire and Ice is the segment of the show when we go through and list 2 games. One game is fire. That's like what kids say now. They just say it's fire. They don't say it's on fire or it's so hot it's on fire. They just say it is fire.
How do you know that?
I know these things. I work with like millennials and stuff.
Legendary.
Well, at least people aren't saying epic anymore.
And I have a 6th grader living in my house too.
Right.
So I get all the lowdown on this stuff. So we have the fire game. It's the game that is on fire for us. We really like it. It's hitting the table. If somebody says, hey, you want to play it? We're like, yes, get it on the table. Let's go. And then there's the ice portion of the segment where it's kind of the opposite. We're like, if you asked me to play it, I'd be like, let's sit on a hot poker instead.
Oh my!
Wow,
that's how much you like fire.
So it's just, and it's not that maybe it's not, it's that it's a bad game. It's just something that it's been overplayed, or you haven't had it in the right setting for a while. So you're just like, we can leave that one go for a bit. So that is Fire and Ice. And I will start off. We start with the fire section of the segment. And my fire game, which I didn't even really mention until now, is Everdell. So Everdell just was released earlier this year from Starling Games. And can I just dispel something real quick? Because everybody that I've ever talked to about this, they're like, sure, it looks good, but does it play good? Like, do we just assume that only ugly games are good? Or like, I don't understand why, like, and I was doing the same thing. I was like, oh man, it looks really good. I hope it plays good too. Like, there are a lot of really good looking games that also are good games, not just, pretty components. And this one is totally that. Like, in my opinion, it plays just as good as it looks. It's it's like light worker placement and tableau building and engine building, but like I could teach you the game in 5 minutes and we'd be off and running. Like, I played it with my boys and I taught it to them super quick, but there's so much else to it that it's really, really good. And I got a copy of the deluxe or the collector's edition or whatever they call it. And it's gorgeous. It is just an amazing looking game. It is top to bottom, a great, great game. It's definitely going to be in my top 10 for this year, if not top 5 or top 3.
Yeah, I like that game a lot, and I was one of them who was. I think I looked at the game and I thought it looked more fluffy to me. It just kind of looked, and I did not expect it to pack as big of a punch as it did. I didn't know we were going to be looking at like a midweight Euro. Okay. I just got a text message on your iPad.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. Anyways. So, yeah, I liked Everdell a lot. Good medium weight Euro, but it just kind of looked like, it might be just a little bit fluffy, just kind of like, it's animals, it's woodland creatures, but
it's not. It's good.
It was deceptive,
and there's a ton of backstory and flavor text and all kinds of stuff in the rule book. Great game. Love this game.
So on that note, a game that also kind of has that fluffy feel to it, which is okay with me, and I had my hesitations because of it, was my fire game, which is Charterstone. I had mentioned this that's what's on the table for me. Charterstone is a village building game and legacy building game where you can have 1 to 6 players who are exploring this. I can't remember what the actual land is called that you're in. I think you actually get to name the village that you're creating. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sending workers out to gather resources and to build buildings, upgrade buildings. And that sounds very simplistic and it sounds like you've played it before, but it's very different than anything I've played before. And I haven't played a lot of legacy games. There are a lot of things happening that you don't expect to happen as you unpack a new thing of cards or you open a new tuck box, and it holds a lot of surprises. Now, I am worried that the game might wear a little bit. I'm worried that it might lose its luster that it has right now, but we've played 3 games of it and we keep seeing new things and keep experiencing new things that are really cool. And so I really like this game. It looks a little bit fluffy. The characters are very cartoon looking. And obviously that's the way it was intended to be, but it kind of turned me off to the game at first. But it was also one of the reasons I got it, because I looked at it and I thought this might draw somebody to the table who's not really into that Euro style game that has a lot of resources laid out all over and, you know, a bunch of symbols and iconography and stuff like that. You don't have that going on here. You've got some very simple looking stuff that is, again, deceptive because there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Love Charterstone. It's a nice, bright game to look at. Having a great time with it right now. I hope it stays that way. So that's my fire.
I had a copy of that and then I gave it away to somebody at Origins.
And you're so nice.
Yeah. So anyway, Scott, Mr. Firestone.
For me, my fire game is Brass Birmingham. This is kind of a sister game to Brass Lancashire, which is the original Brass that Martin Wallace designed. And so he got together, I think, with somebody from Roxley, and they designed this sister game that has many of the same mechanisms, but it just feels a little more modern, I guess. Not to say that Brass is like stodgy, the original one, and I wouldn't play it again, but it has a few more options. It was designed specifically to play well with 2 players, and I've played it with 2 players, and it does play well. And this production, I can't even describe how beautiful it is. I should have looked more closely when it was first on Kickstarter, because I just kind of dismissed it and went, whatever, maybe I'll pick it up later. And then a friend brought it to game night, and I went, oh, wow, this is gorgeous. The artwork on the board is beautiful, and it's 2-sided, so this is about the Industrial Revolution. So you can play on a daytime board, or you flip it over and it's like nighttime, and there are these kind of orange glows all over the board from these making iron across the land, and it's just gorgeous. And they have these great poker chips that are just thematic and beautiful. And but again, it's not like Everdell. It's not just a gorgeous game. This is a heavy, meaty economic game about building industries, shipping coal, shipping iron, producing beer so that other people's workers will work. And it's called coopetition, is a term that has been coined for this, which is you'll put these tiles out on the board and put coal on them or beer on them, and other people may use that beer on your tile, and if once all the resources are off it, it flips over, and that's when it scores victory points. So people will use it for their gain, but it also helps you. But then sometimes you actually put it out there intending to use it yourself, and somebody else snipes the beer out from under you. And so then you have to figure out some other way to get beer in order to help all these different things happen. Anyway, long story short, Brass Birmingham is terrific.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about this, a lot from you, but yeah, it sounds like it's good. I hope to get a chance to play it sometime soon.
Yeah,
super solid.
It's a good looking game, and we talked last week that I was on the fence about two different games. Now I wasn't talking about Birmingham, but I was talking about Brass as something I was interested in.
Yeah.
Ended up going with Spirit Island, but that's okay because it plays well. So on ice right now, though, I would have to say Power Grid. Now I own a copy of Power Grid Deluxe, which there's a lot of hate out there for some different reasons. I love the game. I love that everything fits on the board. But right now I'm not liking it because I feel like I was on this men's retreat, probably back in May. And from the time that I was on this men's retreat to maybe mid-July, I probably played the game about 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
That's a lot of Power Grid.
Yeah, it is.
And it was because I had some new players that were eating it up, because I mean, when you experience Power Grid for the first time, you want to play it again because you want to redo your strategy and how you bet on those power plants.
Yeah.
That's what and you want to develop these new strategies. So it's a really fun game, and they wanted to keep playing it, and I was willing to keep playing it. But then by the time we got finished, I just thought, like 5 games into it, I just thought, I think I can put that on the shelf for a little bit. So that's
so much math.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I haven't played that game in forever, but I keep thinking, I want to play that game again. And then it's just Cult of the New, where it's like, anyone want to play Power Grid? No, we have all these new games to play. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's a whole episode right there.
Yeah, that'd be a good topic, wouldn't it, for Board Games Daily? But anyway, my ice is one that it's a co-op called Robinson Crusoe. Mm-hmm. And I played it a few years ago when it came out, and I liked it. It was different. It wasn't just another pandemic clone. It was very story based, and you had these different scenarios where it was like, you just want to create fire so you don't die, and kind of these basic, like, explore the island, look for wood, look for food, and creatures will attack you and things like that. It was cool. And then so I put it on my want in trade list on the Geek, and finally, just this last week, somebody reached out and said, hey, how about this game for Robinson Crusoe? And it made me realize, I don't actually want that game anymore because I've played Spirit Island.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's just, I can't see myself ever wanting to play Robinson Crusoe after I've played Spirit Island. I know I feel like I'm super hyping that game, but it's so different. It's so solid. It's so just great. I love that game. And so Robinson Crusoe is out of here. I had to tell that guy, I'm sorry, it's on my list, but it shouldn't be anymore.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Not to mention, he was probably trying to offload, again, another game that was just reprinted. People are trying to get rid of their first edition copies.
Yes.
Because they're ugly. And the new one does look fantastic. It does, but I played it once before, and I did not care for it. So I don't know. You said you kind of liked it the first time, but I didn't like it from the get-go. But you are right. It is not a pandemic clone, which is, at least it's got one thing going for it anyway.
All right. So my ice game is Dixit. All right. So next up is fill in the blank.
That's true. That's all you have to say about that.
I don't know. Honestly, so I was telling AJ before we started recording, it's been like, I went over to his house for game night, like late September?
Yeah, it had to be.
And here we are, barreling in on the end of October. And I've literally played like maybe 1 or 2 games since then. So it's just been a hectic time for me, which has been great because like I've been catching up on reviewing the games that I have played, and I had to like kind of clear that out. But like I went in before we started recording and I looked at my shelves and I said, what's something on here that if somebody said, let's play this, I'd be like, no. And like most of the games, I'm like, yep, I'd love to play that again. I'd love to play that again. I haven't played these yet, whatever. And I was like, oh, Dixit, I'd probably say no. So that's why it's there.
Okay.
How can you hate Dixit?
It's not that I hate it. I think it's a fun game, but I would play almost every other game on my shelf before I'd choose that one. So
okay.
That's just where it is for the moment.
Okay.
For the moment. And it's not a typical game that most of my gamer friends would play anyway.
Yeah.
So like that's the kind of game that really takes a certain type of gamer or creative person or whatever to really kind of enjoy.
Bum, 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 bum.
Fill in the blank, fill in the blank. Hey, let's go in. Fill in the blankety blank.
Wow. That was maybe the worst one ever. And that's saying something.
I gave you a baseline intro.
I know. All right. So first fill in the blank is the Kickstarter I'm waiting for is...
Oh, I want to go first.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, this game has lost all hype right now in the media because there's so many other things that are coming out. I guess maybe just Kickstarter media or whatnot. But Edge of Darkness, we've talked about this game a lot. And I am backing this game. I'm backing it at like the super mega level. You know how they all Kickstarters have that awesome level you can get in at. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm waiting for this game, which is a card crafting game. It's semi-cooperative. You've got this sweet darkness tower where you're dropping these cubes down. There's cards that fit into the darkness tower. And as they get filtered into the different trays, you're going to see how much level of strength that monster has, who it's coming after. There's cards all over the board. It's going to be like pandemonium for your eyes when it's all out. There's going to be miniatures for the sake of miniatures because that's what everybody does. And I'm getting them just because I can. And so,
and you're going to sleeve it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to sleeve it. There's
it's card craft.
It's card. So that super mega level, that's like the retailer 6-pack, right? So like you're going to give me a copy.
We might be getting copies. You never know.
You never know. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Scott, what do you got?
Wait, when is that coming out though?
That'll be June. June this year. Or no, June this year. Yep, I got it already.
It came out
June 2019.
Right. I knew what you meant. For me, it is, I don't back that many Kickstarters because most of them stink, but I'm really excited about the Spirit Island one. And hopefully that's the last time I'm going to talk about Spirit Island, but I cannot believe it's going to take 2 years for this to come out. I know they have to play test a bunch, but that's so crazy. Why wouldn't you just wait to have the Kickstarter come out until it's closer to the release? But whatever. It's going to be like 10 new spirits, which is amazing. That's so many new ones. And one of the things I'm excited about, AG, you probably noticed this, like there are different levels of spirits in the game. Like this is basics. Like you want to hand this to a person who has never played this game before because there's not a lot of nuance to playing this spirit well. And then it goes all the way up to like super complex ones. And with the expansion, they give you things to make those basic ones that came in the base game have new mechanisms now. And so it'll refresh even the old ones. I'm so excited about this expansion. Can't wait for it.
That's awesome. I'm overwhelmed by every mechanic of the game has so much expandability to it, whether it's the invaders, whether it's the fear cards, whether it's the spirits themselves. There's so much to this game. I'm just overwhelmed by how vast it is. And it's becoming even vaster. So that's cool. So yeah, I'm excited for it too. I don't know that I'm going to jump in on it, but the more I play Spirit Island will determine. I've got 30 days. Well, less than that now, but we'll see. We'll see.
So I'm going to throw out two that I'm with you, Scott. I don't back a lot on Kickstarter. I just don't have the budget for it mostly, but and trying to convince my wife that I need to buy another game just doesn't. Yeah. So, but I'll say there's two that I'm excited about. And they were actually our neighbors at Origins. One is Rurik, the Dawn of Kiev from Peacekeeper Games, which was successful. They did great with that, so good on them. Kirk Dennison, who is kind of the head of that, really good guy. We just got to know each other pretty well, and his dad was there helping him in the booth, and his dad's like a pastor down south where they live, and so good folks, and it's good to see them successful. They were really kind of hot at Origins, which was really cool. And then our other neighbor across the aisle from us was Elf Creek Games, and they're doing Atlantis Rising, which talking, again, here's another second edition that's coming out, but it looks really, really good. And again, super successful Kickstarter. So those are two games that the market needs, the market deserves. And I'm glad for both of them that they were able to do that.
Nice. All right. If there is one game that you're just dying to play, guys, what is it?
I'll just jump in since I'm in the mode of talking. If there's one,
maybe not one. What are you dying to play?
So I wrote down Black Orchestra, Legends of Andor with the Dark Heroes expansions. I've got that stuff sitting like on my shelf. It's like on the top of my pile. Also the new Space Park from the newest one from Keymaster Games.
Yeah.
And of course the new Emotep expansion. Like those are like, got to get those on the table soon. I'm just dying to play them.
I don't have any new games that I want to play, that I'm dying to play that have just hit the market or something like that. I have a game that you actually have it. It's sitting on your shelf. I've been dying to play it since Origins 2000, I think 16. No, it had to be 17, right? 2017, Lorenzo. Il Magnifico.
Oh,
yeah.
I had such a blast sitting down and playing that game. It gave me.
Keep trying to get that game from me.
And I'm still gonna try and finagle a way to get
I'll trade you Edge of Darkness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The game, I sat down and it gave me such feelings of nostalgia towards older Euro games that I played.
It definitely feels like that.
And it had more vivid colors, but it just felt and looked like a classic Euro game, and I wanted to play more of it. It had cards that were scaffolding on one another. It had tracks that you had to go up on, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was just it was cool and crisp and nice to look at and fun to play. There was a dice mechanism where everybody had to use the same dice, but you had to use different colored dice for different. Oh, it was good. And I want to play it again because I played it the one time, and it's 135 on BGG, which is a good standing for it.
Yeah.
So it means it's got some sort of legs. And plus I think it had an expansion release within 6 months of its original release. So I'm ready to play that one again, and I'm probably going to play it and be sorely disappointed, but
I'd play that before I'd play Dixit.
So, well, then let's play it. Let's play it.
Isn't that the same designer who did Voyages of Marco Polo?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
You might be right there. I don't know off the top of my head who designed it.
Yeah, I haven't played Lorenzo, but I love Marco Polo, and so if it's anything like that, I really want to try that too.
Yeah.
So the game I'm dying to play again is Endeavor: Age of Sail. Played it twice last week with the base game, and as I mentioned earlier, they came out with these totally new expansion pieces called exploits, which there are 15 different ones that completely change the game. And so when these different parts of the world are opened up, then it just unlocks all these new mechanisms in the game. And so like there's one called the Jesuit Missionaries. And so if you unlock South America and India, now there are missionary tokens and they have these special powers. Or you can play with the Spanish Main or the Republic of Pirates or imperialism. And so they just each one of them has unique mechanisms that unlock when 2 specific regions are completely opened up. And so I just can't wait to explore what those are going to look like and how they're going to add to this game that I already love, even if that wasn't in the game.
I think it's my considered opinion that Endeavor Age of Sail is the new Gaia project.
Did I talk about too much?
No. I am fine with it. I have no room to talk because I think my favorite game is going to make its way into this episode with this next segment. So you can talk about it all you want. Go for it.
Here's the next one. We're just going to leave that where we're going to put a pin in that conversation. And the next one is I have sleeved approximately blank cards. So how many cards in your lifetime do you think you have sleeved? If you had to put a number on it.
Yeah.
AJ, how many are in that game we're not going to talk about?
Oh, I'm talking about it.
Just to give me a baseline, because
you've got, so in the Champion Edition alone of Thunderstone Quest, you have at least
shot.
Yeah, I think you have 1,300 cards.
Okay,
so
that sounds about right.
Yeah, so Jeremiah and I were talking about this, and I mean, we're thinking back to the days when you might have had your like a Magic decks or Overpower, or if you were a really big Christian nerd like me, I had Redemption. Go pick up Redemption if you want to laugh. That's
terrible.
So bad.
I'm telling you. But I've got deck boxes that so inside Thunderstone Quest, they've got these 4 boxes that all the cards can fit in. I've got like at least like 3 to 4 or 5, maybe 6 deck boxes that have sleeved cards in them, not to mention other games that I have sleeved cards in. So if we're talking, let's just say I can double Thunderstone Quest, that's at least 3,000 cards right there.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, I think Jeremiah outfitted me with a lot of sleeves in some haul. Jeremiah got a haul. I don't know if he's ever talked about it. He got this haul of games and junk a couple years ago from like a closing comic store, but
yeah, so it's been more than a couple years now. It's probably been like 8 or 9 years. I bought like literally a storage locker full of like crappy Magic cards and some other stuff. I mean, it was a ton of like games. There was some metal miniatures for D&D and all kinds of stuff, but there were a lot of boxes of sleeved cards. So we would go through and just take everything out of the sleeves. And then I would use the sleeves for games because they were like nicer ones. You know, they had like a colored back or, whatever. It wasn't just like the cheap stuff. So if I had to put a number on it, I mean, because here's the thing. I was way into like the collectible card game thing with Overpower and Middle Earth and whatever other, collectible card game I could get a hold of that they turn, whatever trope they turned into a collectible card game in the 90s. And I would probably say conservatively, I would say between 8 and 10,000 cards.
Wow. I believe it. I'm not even doubting that.
Because if you think about, AJ and I and Cpos, our friend, we got into the Star Trek collectible card game when it was dead, and you could buy a box of cards for like $8. Like you buy a booster box, and I would fill up a long box of those and sleeve most of them. Lord
of the Rings was dead.
Lord of the Rings was dead. We got into that. I mean, I've just got long boxes of cards that I've sleeved over the years, and then some of them that I've unsleeved and gotten rid of or whatever. But yeah, I've sleeved a lot of cards in my day.
Wow.
What about you, Firestone?
I'm probably around 3,000. I mean, just half of that is Thunderstone Quest, but I don't do a bunch, but there are a few games. I think we talked about this on Board Games Daily. Like there are a few games now where I'm starting to spend $100 on them. like Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to sleeve that game because I don't want anything happening to those cards.
Right. It's an investment. Yeah.
Yep. So 3,000 or 4,000 maybe.
And I'll say, I really appreciate that you can go on Mayday games now.
Yes, I was going to drop them if you didn't.
And yeah, you can just click and say like, oh, I need Gloomhaven. And there's like a package that you buy and they send you all the right sizes for all the right cards. Whatever game it is. I mean, there's a lot of them that they have, and you just click that and they send you the bundle and it's got all the right quantities of the right sizes. That's really, really cool. And quality stuff too, obviously.
Cost effective.
And they have sales pretty often too.
Yeah, yeah. They do Mayday. They do their in May especially. They do a lot of really good sales too. So, good stuff. Good folks over there. Seth Hyatt and the gang, doing good stuff for the gaming industry. We are here towards the end of the show. And it's what I like to call the not so lightning round, even though the sheet that we're looking at says lightning round. I get it. It's supposed to be a lightning round, but these are questions that we ask and we answer, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with gaming, but sometimes they do. But yeah, it's lightning round, and I think this is where the listeners can really chime in and call in and answer the lightning round questions, or contest our answers to the lightning round questions. So I'm going to drop that phone number one more time: 216-352-3864. Get that in your speed dial. It's not even speed dial anymore. That's such a 90s thing to say.
Speed dial.
Put it in your contacts.
Listen on your answering machine.
Put it in your pager in case we call you.
Right, blow me up, yo. But yeah, you can call in, answer the lightning round questions, and we'll play those, and maybe we'll dispute your answers in the next episode. So here we go. It's lightning round, and I'm going to contest this question, by the way.
Agreed. Whoever wrote that is a chump.
Did you write this, AJ?
I'm the chump.
The chump. The question is Larry, Curly, or Mo, and then a parenthetical statement right next to it saying Shemp is not a choice.
That's because I knew some chump would try and select him.
Listen, I'm not going to say I'm going to select him, but to say that he's not an option is showing disrespect for the history of the Stooges, if you ask me.
He is legitimate.
He's a legitimate
He's a stooge.
He is the original Stooge, by the way. Curly wasn't a part of the Stooges when they were on vaudeville. And then it wasn't until Scream where he became a part of the Stooges. And then that whole thing went down. But
I also knew that, Jeremiah, because I'm a giant Three Stooges nerd and read the book that Mo Howard wrote on their history.
See, I haven't read that yet. I need to get that, because if I do read, I like to read biographies, and I think that would be amazing. And the Stooges are amazing. And if you're listening to the show and you don't know anything about the Three Stooges, go watch them, because they're awesome and they're funny.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not a lightning round because we haven't even begun to answer the question.
Well, we had to get the question straight first.
Screwed it up.
So it's Larry, Mo, Curly, or Shemp. Who you got? I know who Scott's going to say.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just say it. Larry.
Of course.
Larry is amazing. He is the quiet one, but if you watch episodes of him, he's amazing. He's hilarious and my favorite.
He's the quintessential straight guy.
That's what
isn't there, like he's not all there. Like he's just as dumb as everyone else, but he tries to play the straight guy, and it's so masterfully done. It is comedy gold. I cannot dispute that answer.
Yeah, he's the one so the Three Stooges live and breathe on slapstick. And I don't think there's anything funnier than when he's getting hurt. His faces, his expressions. So Larry is definitely my favorite. I watched an episode just last week of him. There's all these barrels rolling down the hill. They're driving some beer up up this hill. And somehow these barrels, they start rolling out of the back of the truck, and then they're trying to keep them in the truck, and this starts chasing them down the hill. And Larry climbs this tree, and this barrel somehow hits a rock, jumps up into the tree, and knocks Larry out of the tree. But because the effects are so bad in the Stooges from that day, and they tried to do things, he just flings like 15 feet backwards out of the tree as though a barrel could do this, and lands in a pile of wet cement, because of course there's a pile of wet cement. Course,
right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm Larry all the way.
So this is like the hardest choice ever, right? I mean, there's so I don't know. I'm probably gonna lean towards Larry myself, but that the margin between all four of them is so razor thin.
Agreed.
And I mean, honestly, I think Shemp is not on the bottom of my list, because he was just so good. But I will say with Larry, one of my favorite lines in my childhood, like, me and my brother would crack up, and just all we'd have to do is say, "My Stradivarius! Oh, my Stradivarius!" Like, it just brings back that rush of childhood nonsense, laughing at these guys. So there it is. I'm going to go with Larry too. But so good.
Yeah,
and one of my favorite quotes that I actually where do I put that? It was on something.
Email.
On my email, yeah. One of us is crazy, and it's not you. It's a Larry line.
Yeah, the Stooges. So how about this? This question is all over. This DC or Marvel?
This is the easiest question of them all.
Well, I'm not talking movies. I'm talking universe. Come on.
Still.
It's not come on.
It's
I know
the
where
easiest question of them all.
Okay, so where do you stand?
Marvel all the way.
You're an idiot.
Why? Because I don't want my superheroes to have zero. Okay, I'm gonna bag on Superman, but like, what can't he do? Like, he does everything. But that's why he's not awesome.
That's
because
why he's boring.
He's boring. He's not flawed. He's not. There's no weakness. Oh, he's got kryptonite. Whatever. Like, you had to make up some fake magic rock that makes him weak. Come on. And Marvel, like, every hero is relatable. Like, there's always something that flaws them or something that haunts them.
Oh, come on.
It is
Marvel characters are relatable.
Close.
They are the most over the top.
Oh, come on.
They are the most over the top characters that are unbelievable.
You're defending the universe that has the Green Lantern by saying that Marvel's over the top.
All the Green Lanterns are well, okay, I was about to say all the Green Lanterns are human. They're not.
They're not.
No. But listen, come on. There's actually like character development in the DC universe.
What are you talking about? I have a Green Lantern and a ring. Oh, come on.
I hate you both right now, because Scott doesn't even have to chime in to know that
I didn't say anything.
All right, where you fall on this?
Okay, in general, it's Marvel, but I love Batman so much.
Batman is the DC caveat. If they would have written characters like they wrote Batman, then we would be having a different conversation, but they didn't. Yes. They didn't. He's the only one that's outside of that. Come on, you're defending Aquaman over here.
No, I'm not. I'm saying.
No, I'm talking to AJ. Sorry, you couldn't see me turning.
I don't defend every superhero in the universe, and let me put it this way: I love X-Men more than I like any superhero or superhero group, but I still like DC Universe better.
So he's pro Aquaman and anti Shemp. What are you doing with him?
Wait, I never said I was pro Aquaman. There's not a person in the universe who is pro Aquaman.
I don't know about that. All right, let's move on. Lightning round. All right, favorite Halloween candy to steal from your kids. Ooh, this one is easy For me,
Easy for me too. Go
it
ahead.
is Reese's Pieces
Oh yeah.
all day.
Mine is Dots.
Dots. Oh, now see, that's a controversial candy, but I'm with you on that. I love Dots. I think they're great.
Why is it controversial?
Because some people are like, oh, they're gross.
Oh, I
they're
love 'em.
sticky. They're tough.
Oh yeah.
Like
I like chewy, sweet, and sour candies. I could do that over chocolate any day.
Yeah.
But
Yep, me too.
I
agree.
I have had this was my first opportunity to steal from my child. She is not even 1 year old, but she did receive candy tonight. None of which would be the candy that I would steal. I did take a Snickers, however, but I would Sour Patch Kids in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I love me some Patchies.
You know what I like about the new thing that they're packaging is like the ones that are just the watermelon slices.
Oh yeah.
Have you had those?
That is so not new.
Well, maybe I just discovered it. But
I've been eating just the watermelon since I was like in 5th grade. I'm 32 years old.
So
the new thing,
the thing that they do that they've been doing for a while. No, I like those too, but that's good.
Yeah.
So there it is. Halloween candy. Yeah, my kids got a lot of it today. It's out of control. But my kids, they never eat it all because we let them eat some and then like we'll pack it in their lunch for like a couple days, you know, like here's a little piece of your candy. And then there's like a bucket that sits on top of our refrigerator for like the next 5 months until game nights happen and they all get eaten. And anyway, all right, that's enough about.
Should we skip that next one? Is it just stupid?
No, we'll just keep going. It's fine.
All right.
Don't worry about it.
All
Don't
right.
worry about it. Okay. Preferred social media: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or MySpace.
Facebook.
Facebook is the Firestone's answer. That's all you have? Are you trying to like make this a legitimate lightning round?
Well, it is like almost midnight where you guys are.
Oh, is that all it is? Is you're just looking out for us?
Hey, I care about you guys, even though AJ doesn't like Shemp and loves Aquaman.
Listen, I have to teach kids tomorrow, and do you think I'm worried about them? No.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I all I know is I slept maybe 4 hours last night. So anyway, so you say Facebook, AJ?
I got on Facebook when I was in college, and that was like, I never did MySpace, or there were a couple other ones before Facebook that were kind of silly too. And so I've never graduated from Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I've never got out of it. And now I'm like getting older and people look at me for being on Facebook and say that's so yesterday. But
here's the thing with Facebook though, like anytime there's something new in social media, give it like 2 to 3 months and it'll be on Facebook. Like Facebook is everything all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
But I use Facebook all the time. I'm like on it every day, posting stuff, checking stuff, whatever. But I really like Instagram because I can feed my Facebook through Instagram, and I like it how brief it is. It just you scroll through, you double tap, and you keep it moving. But I probably say, I don't know, I probably say Facebook just because it is such a central place. But I feel like if I want to reach more people, I'm going to Instagram or I'm going to Twitter because you don't have to pay as much to get your stuff seen on those sites. And I do miss how on MySpace you would go to somebody's page and they would have like a song that plays and you could get like in their top 8 spaces and
download the new Flash player and you can hear their song.
Right. And nobody knows what we're talking about at this point. We've lost the entire audience. Okay, last lightning round question is, what is your favorite fall activity?
Oh, I'll go first on this one. I reminisce about this one. I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to throw the football with my friends and my neighbors that I lived with, and I did it after they moved along, and my brothers were still hanging out. We would do it, but the coolest thing to do when I was growing up was to rake a huge pile of leaves and then throw some super awesome pass into that pile of leaves and try and catch it. And you could just fall into that leaf and you'd still like hurt your arm.
Oh yeah. Cause it really doesn't pad you that much.
No, but you certainly thought it might. But I love doing that. I love just throwing the football when the leaves are coming down. You can smell them. They're crisp and it's that fall weather. I love being outdoors, but just kind of throwing the football around has always been something I've really enjoyed doing.
For me, it is walking around our neighborhood, trick-or-treating with the family. We spent a long time trying to move to the town we're in now. And so we finally get here, and just that very first Halloween was great. And ever since then, it's just a great memory of walking through the neighborhood. And we used to have some neighbors that would do these elaborate sets. Like one year they were the pirate ship from Goonies, and another year they did the Hobbit. And so they had like a round door, and they were all dressed up as hobbits. It's really awesome. And then they moved away. And then last year we went to this house, and these guys were like, "Hey, sorry, we're out of candy." So they handed my kids potatoes. And so just memories like that. Like I just love walking through our neighborhood.
That's cool. I never went trick-or-treating until my oldest was old enough. I think he was like 2 when we first went. And I was like, because growing up in a Christian home, there was, and I understand those arguments totally about, celebrating Halloween and what the origins of that is and all of that. But the first time we went in my mother-in-law's neighborhood, which is where my wife grew up. And I was like, this is cool, man. Like people are out, like all the neighbors are out. Everybody's saying hi. Cops are kind of cruising around, talking to people. It's a cool thing. My favorite fall activity, and I missed out on it this year. And I think I've talked about this because we've done this before in the past for lightning round during this time of year, is going to see Megasaurus at the local pumpkin farm. There's a pumpkin farm. It's not local to us. It's like maybe 30 minutes away, but they bring out this giant robot dinosaur that breathes fire and eats cars. Like this thing is crazy. It like picks up cars and like literally bites them in half. And, like there's pumpkins inside it and it like cooks them and eats them. And it's so over the top crazy. But then they do, they've got like hay rides and they take you out in the pumpkin patch and you can actually pick your pumpkin out of there. And they got a huge corn maze and everything. And I didn't get to go this year. My wife and the kids went with my father-in-law and his wife. But I was working a show and I didn't get to do it. But we have great memories. I mean, we've been doing this for almost 10 years now, going out to this farm, and it's a really great time.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. All right. We've done it. Can you believe it?
Is that 2 hours? Did we do 2 hours?
I'm going to check the time. Oh, we're going to scroll. Maybe
hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a very action-packed episode. Maybe we'll cut some of it out and we'll put it as a special bonus content for our Patreon friends and see what we can do there. But thanks so much to everybody who stuck with us and listened to the whole thing. Again, if you want to talk about that lightning round and our answers and how AJ loves Aquaman, you can call in and leave your messages at 216-352-3864. That'll be in the show notes as well in case you didn't write it down in time or whatever, but you can look that up. Or like I said, just go to theologyofgames.com/contact. There's all kinds of ways that you can reach us there, including that number. Hit us up on socials, Instagram. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We don't have a MySpace page though.
Or a Pinterest.
We do have Pinterest.
Stop it.
Pinterest has started emailing us now too. They're like,
I know.
By the way, this is happening. We're like, what? Who's doing this? What's going on?
It goes well with the pandemic. The Cure review pot roast.
Right. A decorated palette. So there's that. And thank you again for listening. And also, if you like the show, if you wouldn't mind giving us a rating and a review and a subscription wherever you're listening, whether it's Google or iTunes or Spotify or wherever it is. And of course, share the show. Sharing is caring. Tell people about it. Let them know about it and help them find it. Parting words, gentlemen.
See you later.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Theology of Games podcast with Jeremiah Isley and Scott Firestone. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate your subscription to the podcast and your review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day, and until next time, get a game on the table.
I really like Gaia Project, apparently. Blah, blah, blah.